Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to show how I made this Grimdark style tile. It's nice and modular. As you can see, I've got these little cutouts, so these sort of butt up against another tile and a little connector goes in there to keep them all in place, which is pretty cool as I want to make several of these to use. Well, initially I'm going to use them in my kill team games, but obviously these can be used for Necromunda or any other kind of like board and patrol sort of game that you might want to play. So this is the first tile in at least 6 that I'm going to make up, and quite simply I start off with the board and made it out of MDF. As you can see, nice sort of thin bit here, 3mm, and I'm going to cut these into, well, about 12 inches square. Now I have got a laser cutter which will obviously cut this really well, but as I'm always saying guys, I am lacking in space. I literally have sort of one table that I can put something on, and at the moment it's got a 3D printer on there. So I can't use the laser cutter, but that's fine. This stuff cuts nice and easy. Just a few sort of scrapes along with a blade and it's done. So talking about the 3D printer, I'm going to use that to make up the tiles that go on the floor. These are found just on Thingiverse. So where possible guys, I will leave links to everything I'm using. But in this case, I just found these ages ago. Nice simple little tiles. And as you can see, all the connectors on there as well. And I've made some cutouts in some of the tiles. As you'll soon see, well, the connectors go in between, and those little sort of like X Factor looking things, well, they're the ones that sort of join the two tiles together, which will be pretty cool. So talking to 3D printers, I've got a new one. I am very fortunate guys, and I know this, and I really appreciate that I am lucky, as Elegoo sent me their Saturn 3. I always love it though when you get a new one. They're nice and clean and fresh, and obviously pouring in the resin. This is obviously the only time that it does stay nice and clean, because after this it does tend to get a little bit messy. So yeah, everything came out perfect. As you can see, nice big build plate here, everything's on there, and this is enough to do one tile, which is pretty cool because it just means I can just print out this one sort of file, and instantly I've got all the tiles needed to do the floor of each sort of each tile. So yeah, scrape them off, give them a bit of a clean up, and then they're ready to sort of glue onto the board. And lo and behold, my maths was perfect as they fit on here, well, perfectly. Say they've got the little cutout there to have this little sort of tab thingy. So say my idea is to make these very modular so that they can be used in any direction, and you can just put them together. But as you can possibly see, I have made my deliberate mistake there, as in these corner tiles needed to have the cutout on, well, both ends. No big issue though, because I can just sort of cut them nice and easy. So I've marked out on this kind of template thing that I'm going to use, and this obviously shows exactly where these little tabs are meant to go. And in this way I know that whenever I put these onto this board, doesn't matter which sort of side you get, they're all going to be nice and even. And yeah, they'll match up with the tabs on the other tiles that I'm going to make. So initially I'm going to make at least 6, because then that'll be the nice sort of size to play the kill teams on. And yeah, it's a nice sort of simple job of just lining them up. Again, this could be done so much easier on my laser engraver or cutter, but say because it's not set up, it is just a case of marking it by hand and then cutting it by hand. But say this MDF is only 3mm thick, so it just takes a few sort of scores with a good old Stanley knife here, and it cuts through a treat. I do sort of use a little bit of sandpaper afterwards just to sort of tidy it all up. So the board's 3mm thick, these tiles are 3mm thick. So the actual sort of tab that connects the two is, well, 6mm thick. So using good old Gorilla Glue, I haven't used this for a while, but I do love this stuff because obviously it's great for sticking, well, anything to anything else. But one thing I like about this is when you put it on, you do have a little bit of time to move things around. But once it does sort of set, it's yeah, it's definitely as good as super glue. But say initially when you're doing tiles, it is nice to be able to put them in position, but you can still then move them around if you need to make any sort of slight adjustments. Whereas obviously using super glue, as soon as it makes contact, yeah, bish bash bosh, it's firm. So yeah, good old Gorilla Glue just to make it easier in positioning tiles, well, where they need to go really. And then the centre tiles, they just fit in perfectly because they are just normal tiles. So I'm going to sort of make the adjustments to the corner tiles so they are also nice and cut out. But say because this stuff is only 3mm thick, it is relatively easy just to sort of trim and cut. I've got a variety of sort of Stanley knives or blades, and one that I got that I don't really ever use, and that's this sort of like very flat edged one. I always wondered when I'd ever use this, because I say it's been in my blade box for about 2 years now, and yeah, it's just perfect for this job as it is just sort of push straight down and bosh, off the bits come. And there we go, it's all nicely put in. So using a bit of grout, you will see me use a lot of this later on, as I love grout as a filler. And yeah, I'm just going around the edge just to sort of make it look a bit, well, I would say neater, but obviously as you can see, yeah, I'm not really making it look neater, I'm just filling in a little bit of a gap. But yeah, it doesn't take too long, and this is obviously the sort of the board look. And this is what I'm going to make, sort of 6 of these, and then just a variety of, well, terrain on the top. So there's the first one, and here's the second one, just because I wanted to make sure that everything does line up perfectly, and my maths wasn't out on the little template I made. So this is where in the past I would have done a bit of scratch building and just gone around the house or flat, found all bits of plastic, bits and bobs, broken up computers, and I would have made sort of something from this. But yeah, that's the old days. Obviously these new days, well, I've got a 3D printer. Well, I've got a couple of 3D printers. So yeah, let's 3D print loads of bits off. So say guys, this box does have a variety of bits in it. There are 2 main sort of 3D model makers, and I will leave their links down below. And one of them is Fabricator's Layer. You'll just see me use quite a lot of their stuff, as that's what my Killzone board is made from. And the other one you're going to see a lot of is Print Minis, as I will be making one of these tiles up purely with all their stuff. So yeah, links in the description guys, go check them out. But say everything else, there's lots of odds and ends in here that I found on Thingiverse. Unfortunately I can't leave links to everything because a lot of this stuff I kind of downloaded ages ago. So obviously with these boards being sort of, or these tiles being modular, I want to make sure that when I glue things down, I'm not gluing them over where these little tabs are going to be. So everything's sort of like inset just a little bit. As I say, I want to be able to sort of put these together, but in any sort of way you want. So that's kind of why I'm making these tiles. Well, I'm also making them look like dioramas as well, which would be pretty cool. So when I sort of paint up my little miniatures, this will be a nice little backdrop for those. So with this tile, I want to say I had an idea of what I was doing. Nah, not really. I just printed out loads and loads of odds and ends, and then picked them all up. And so it's kind of like scratch building. But scratch building with parts that are deliberately kind of printed that would look well in this sort of setting. One of the main things I did really want though was to make it have a variety of heights. So me and my mate, we've been playing Kill Team now for, I think it's nearly a year, but we kind of started just before Into the Dark. So we've only ever used terrain that's been fairly flat and doesn't have any heights. So that's why the main thing I thought of when I was making this is I wanted to make sure there's a variety of heights that we can be. This probably is going to complicate things when me and my mate play, as we've never done line of sight from sort of like an advantage position. So yeah, we are going to have to read up the rules just to make sure we know what we're doing when it comes to you being higher than the opponent, and shooting down, and well, them shooting up. So yeah, so say this is made from a variety of tiles guys, but say those 2 people I mentioned, there are links down below. Go check out their stuff, as they do a ton of terrain pieces, which is awesome. Great thing is obviously any gaps that appear here and there, well, you just sort of fill them with greebly bits. And that's another great thing about Thingiverse. That's where I go to sort of find a lot of stuff. Everything on Thingiverse is free, which is pretty cool. But it does obviously mean you've got to search around for tons of stuff. Whereas Print Minis and Fabricator's Layer, they have a whole variety of stuff, kind of like in one file, which makes things obviously a whole lot easier. As you can see, a bit of health and safety here. We don't want any Space Marines falling off the edge to their doom. So yeah, a few railings. And so this is what I like about Thingiverse. You can go on there and type in Necromunda, and it pops up with a ton of things. Some things you always thought you might need, and other things, well, you didn't think you might need. But yeah, loads of like, say, greebly bits. They have everything there, which is just awesome. So yeah, using a variety of panels here and bits and pieces, and obviously pipes. Necromunda is definitely sort of, yeah, full of pipes and bits. So yeah, loads and loads of pipes. So say with this, there was no real plan other than I wanted the back bit to have like 2 sort of corners, and then say a bit of height, as I wanted to have, well, just height for the game. So it is going to be pretty challenging for me and my mate to yeah, just to get the grips with the rules of, well, having an advantage position, I guess. But yeah, say this really was sort of made up as I went along, but I had a ton of fun of it, and I had 2 printers running. So it was the Elegoo Mars 3 and the Saturn free, yeah, just printing loads of bits off. So I've got a couple of boxes now full of bits and pieces, just to make it easier when I want to sort of make some terrain pieces, as yeah, I've got loads of bits already cut off. So I wanted some of this area to look a bit sort of broken and dishevelled, and using my clippers, probably not the best thing really, yeah, cutting it up. This is where sometimes it's difficult to do things when I've got a camera right in my face, so I had a few problems, but then again I am trying to cut a chunky piece off here, but we got there in the end. So yeah, pretty much done with everything being in place, and then say this is where I love grout. I do use this to sort of cover holes and bits and pieces everywhere, and then yeah, putting this in, not necessarily being neat with this, as this will obviously add to the effect of making rust. As you can see from the sort of finished picture, this is one rust bucket, which is exactly how I wanted it to be. So as well as using the grout to obviously fill the gaps, I am using it to add a bit of a textured layer, so when I come to do the rust effect later, not only does it look like it's rust as in the colour, but it also has, well, has a lot of texture and roughness to it, which yeah, which will look pretty cool. So the one big difference with this tile over any sort of like dioramas I've made, and that is I'm actually doing sort of stuff to the back of this, just because, as I say, I don't know where this is going to be in relationship to all the other tiles. So the back of this might actually be, well, a main part that we use. So yeah, everything is getting sort of, well, care and a bit of attention. And then yeah, so all the gaps are finished, and now I'm just using a bit of grout here and there, just to say, to add sort of texture, roughness, and definitely the rust effect. Just because, well, when you see the end results and you see the close-up shots, you'll see that this texture really does work well. But yeah, for giving the appearance of this being rust. So say it has a variety of browns and oranges in the colour, but yeah, you run your finger over it and it does feel as rough as a badger's what's it. And there we go. So it didn't take long at all to get this made. So it did help though having loads of bits 3D printed, which is really cool. So say I've got several boxes now. One with loads of fabricators layer stuff in, one with loads of print mini stuff in, and then just like a random box of, well, anything and everything I could find. But say especially pipes, yeah, I've got tons of pipes, which is pretty cool. So now onto the painting, and I had a cunning plan of using my airbrush to make things a lot simpler, especially as those lovely people over at Army Painter sent me this Warpaints Air Complete set. And again guys, I know I'm very fortunate and lucky with this this YouTube channel. The companies do send me stuff because obviously they get some free advertising, and well, I get some free stuff. So yeah, this turned up, and this thing was as heavy as anything, but not surprising. There's what, about 126 paints in here, and the thing I love about these paints is they're already I want to say diluted. I know that's not the term, but they've already got the thinner in them. So you literally just squeeze these into the your airbrush and away you go, which makes these so simple and so easy to use. And as you can see, the colour palette, it's unreal. There's so many different shades of colours. Yeah, you also don't need to sort of mix any colours together to get what you want, which just makes, well, airbrushing so easy now. You will see me using it quite a lot, or attempting to use it quite a lot anyway. So yeah, everything's primed in black, ready to go. I've got my little airbrush here. There's a link down below, guys, to where I got this one. And it's Everything Airbrush by the Spray Gun Company. And yeah, say this one, it is so easy to use. I wanted to use a spray gun or an air gun for so long. I have now using it, and yeah, it is just fun, easy. And as you can see, it really didn't take me long to, well, to chuck some paint on this terrain. If I tried to do this by brush, obviously I probably would have done a lot of dry brushing. But even then, it still would have taken quite a while. Whereas this, and say this is in the hands of a complete novice. I've only used this thing about 4 times, and yeah, for something like this, terrain pieces, it's a doddle. And as you can see, didn't take me too long at all to get paint on, which is so good. And I say the Army Painter paints, you just drop them in, spray them, and then a quick bit of a clean, and you're ready to go for the next one. So yeah, this bit, I thought I was using copper, but obviously it clearly wasn't copper, so I do change the colour of that later on. And then yeah, my rust, Dirty Down Rust, absolutely love this stuff. It is just so easy to use. The bottle does need a crazy amount of shaking, and generally you need to get a little stirring stick in there to sort of stir it up. But once you've done that, keep the bottle sort of in your hand for a few minutes, keep it nice and warm, and then yeah, simply you just dab it everywhere you want. No real pattern to this, just get sort of a good cover in, And then what I normally do is I've got a little cup of water, so I dab on some of the dirty down rust, sort of nice and neat, and then I get my brush in the water and I use that to sort of brush it around. Two reasons for this. Obviously the first one, it sort of varies sort of how thick and the consistency of where the rust is, so where the stronger parts are obviously be more rusty, and the other one is obviously it helps better coverage. So especially like the bits on the wall, using the water, it sort of starts having a bit of a drip effect, and yeah, it really just adds to the rust look, as well as obviously making the rust last longer. But yeah, this stuff is just fantastic. Say, there's no real wrong way of doing this, as long as you've stirred it properly, mixed it all up nice. Yeah, just chuck this stuff on and you are good to go. Yeah, so I really didn't like the look of these bits being this sort of this reddish sort of colour. So again, yeah, the airbrush took 2 seconds to quickly cover that. Again, don't need to be too neat because this is going to be a rust bucket. So once I had coated this, I then threw on loads more of the dirty down rust, and yeah, this is how it looks. So with the dirty down rust, you can obviously just leave it and it just dries naturally, or you can, in this case, as you can see here, I'm using a heat gun just to sort of speed things up. I mean, you don't have to leave this sort of say half an hour and it would all dry, and yeah, it would give you the great rust effect. Or you spend a few minutes with a hot air gun, and yeah, it just goes rusty in front of your eyes. And I say, guys, if you ever never used it before, yeah, highly recommend Dirty Down Rust, because it's simple, it's easy, and I like things that are simple, easy, and in this case, very, very quick, which is yeah, pretty awesome. So guys, like I said at the beginning, I am going to make at least 6 of these tiles up, just because then I'll have enough to have a bit of a mess about with my kill team. So yeah, any ideas of, well, a theme for each tile, let me know. I've only really got one theme, which will be probably the next one, and it's kind of like sort of prison crates and bits and pieces. But yeah, guys, let me know in the comments what kind of sort of theme I should have for the well, for the tiles. And there we go. So I just love how this looks. It does. It just looks like it's a rust bucket, or it looks like something that's been at the bottom of the sea for like a couple of 100 years. It really is. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. And the last thing to do is just to do a little bit of dry brushing, capture all the edges with some nice silver. So yeah, using this silver and using my good old, well, my dry brush palette. We've obviously all seen this quite a lot. Yeah, just load up the brush and then rub obviously loads of it off. I do hate the fact that I'm wasting paint, as yeah, I don't like wasting anything, but obviously this does then give your brush the right amount of silver on there to, well, do the dry brushing and just literally capturing or catching the upper edges just to give it that worn look. And it also makes this now look like it was metal that has, well, gone a bit rusty. And yeah, again, nice and simple. Again, guys, I really am a novice. I've had this channel for a few years, but all my painting, yeah, I'm just your bog standard, well, slapchop guy. That is my obviously normal go-to method, but I do love using this airbrush. And the good thing is with the airbrush, you can use speed paints. Yeah, speed paints go through the airbrush a treat, as obviously they are nice and, well, again, they're not watered down, but you know what I mean. So yeah, didn't take too long to go over the whole of this thing. And I say, I do go around the back of this, even though you won't really see much of the back, especially when I'm doing any sort of like diorama shots with my little miniatures. But yeah, I wanted the back to look like it was kind of done, just so when these tiles are together, then yeah, it's not just like a, well, an unfinished piece. It has been completed all the way around. And there we go, there's my miniatures in it, and I'm in love with this, guys. For the amount of time it took to make this, yeah, I am so pleased with it. And I say, especially knowing that I can get some more tiles together and to make this into like a bigger board, it's just going to look great. So when I am making these boards, I am sort of obviously thinking about how you'd get from one board onto the other. Obviously you can see these front 2 edges fully opened, so well, you just walk from one tile to the other. But there are a couple of sort of doorways that will lead from this to the other tile, with obviously a nice big wall in front. And a good big old double door there at the back, again would lead from this to, well, whatever tile may or may not be behind it. And with the walkways, so yeah, I want to get some more height into these tiles. So some tiles are going to be relatively sort of low, and maybe just one floor, and some like this are going to have sort of, well, a couple of floors. And again, I might have something on a different tile that leads into this bit, which is really good to say. These are going to be very modular, and very unique. Each one's going to be sort of a different kind of theme. But yeah, the fact they are going to obviously all go together. When it comes to the painting though, I am going to paint these in this sort of similar theme, as I do like the Grimdark. Yeah, down and dirty. This thing's not been lived in for hundreds of years, and this is the extent of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to as well being able to sort of put these tiles together, put in the little connector, and well, them staying together and not moving or jigging about, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm in love with this tile all round, guys. So let me know your thoughts on the tile, what you think of it, if you think I've done a good job or not, or what you think I should do differently. And yeah, definitely let me know what sort of other theme tiles you think I should be doing. As yeah, say there's gonna be at least 6 in this little mini series. I just want to say a big thank you to all my lovely patrons and Chaos Cards and the Colour Forge for helping sort of sponsor the channel, and well, for keeping me going really. There's another video on the screen, guys. Give that a click to see more of what I do, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye for now.